Woohoo! And we're live once again on another Tuesday, and I have G in the house. So we got G-Force going on today. Woohoo! And before we get started, G, why don't you go ahead and tell people who you are and what you do, and then I'll flip up the banner and tell people what we're talking about today.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gehan, Haridy-Ardanowski, or G for short. I actually do a few different things, fractional HR consulting, and also guiding HR professionals and their brands to sensational, basically, taking it to demystify the process of putting yourselves out there and, just working on a few different things right now. So I'm really excited.
Me too. Me too. So we are talking about today, our talk is from stage to page, how a 5-minute disrupt HR talk sparked a book. And this is so exciting because I'm hoping that people will be excited here because so many of us have given presentations, and it doesn't matter if you gave it on the stage or you gave it on the virtual stage. A talk is a talk. And so what we are talking about is how you've created that content, you went out, you delivered some sort of presentation, and then how that can be repurposed into a book. Wow, that's exciting. So G, before we go any further, please tell us the story of sort of how the talk inspired the book in the first place.
It's a really long, amazing story. So let me be as concise as I can with this. It all started from an idea that I had for a Disrupt HR talk from a show that I had seen, July of 2022 that resonated with me about HR professionals being called Satan, evil, all of that. So about a year and a half later, when I went to apply for Disrupt HR talk, I decided to take some of those thoughts that had been, again, spinning in my mind for quite a while, because those are the things you hear about, the HR's evil and terrible, and trying to figure out a way to dispel some of those stodgy, dodgy, evil myths. And I wanted to do a talk about it. So I pitched an idea for a talk for Disrupt HR Tucson that took place this past April. And I was accepted for it. I delivered the talk. And for those who aren't familiar, Disrupt HR, think TEDx on steroids. So basically, it's a series of 5-minute Ignite style talks. So again, taking your big ideas, doing 20 slides, auto advancing every 15 seconds over 5-minute period, and sharing that message with an audience, big, small, what have you. So after that talk, and I'm going to start dropping some names here because it's relevant in all of this. So did this talk in April, beginning April. At the end of April, the videos came out. And our friend, Michelle B. Griffin, branding expert extraordinaire, whom everybody loves. Please follow her. Her own book is dropping soon, by the way. She ended up, seeing my video and kept raving about the video. And gee, you did such a great job, et cetera, et cetera. So that went on for a couple of days or so. And then she said, gee, have you thought of writing a book on it? Or maybe you should write a book on it, and something along those lines. And it was just kind of nudging me in that direction to possibly write a book that would, take that idea, that talk, and expand upon it. And so comes the idea of the mini book. And she introduced me at the end of April to a mini book series by Chris Stanley. Said, gee, read Chris Stanley's mini book model that is really condensing larger, daunting books into more digestible ways to write. And so she said, gee, do this. I think it was on a Friday or so. And she said, gee, join a book cohort that we're doing to write a book draft in May. Couple days later, and month of May, I wrote a draft. June, July, I edited, got the cover together. And then August, I published. So I literally took an idea from a Disrupt HR talk, from a topic I'd seen on air a couple of years prior, to writing a book about it all this time later. And I mean, I could expand on this forever, but really it comes from a talk. I gave a talk. Someone loved the talk enough to encourage me to write about it. Thus I did.
Love it. Love it. And it's like mini book, mini talk, and vice versa. Mini talk, mini book. It goes either way, and it's just fabulous. And I agree with you. I think mini books, smaller books, which is basically like 30,000 and less. That's kind of a mini book that it's like you get those out there. They're easier to do than like, oh, I'm going to write the tome that I've been thinking of writing for all time, the Bible of all what I'm going to write. That's so hard to do. So you're better off with these small, snackable books that people can read quickly, read them in a day or two, and you're done. So that's just brilliant. So I have a couple questions for you. So
Yes.
I want to talk about the process. So yes. So number one, you said you joined a book cohort, a writing cohort that was done by Michelle B. And that's fabulous because that talked about, that gives you ideas of other people have ideas now that it's like a group is a good way to go. It's not the only way, but it is one way to go because you have mentorship and you have accountability and you have the support of other people. So there's lots of good stuff that happens in a group. But you have to still do the writing on your own. So, G, can you take us through? You sat down and said, okay, how do I do this now? Did you transcribe your video? Did you look at your notes? Did you go through your practice? Like, what was the mechanics of how you said, okay, I did this talk. Now, how do I turn it from sort of one-dimensional thing into another dimensional thing, which is the page?
The great part about that was because I had memorized and practiced my speech, my talk, so many times in that moment when I started to think, how can I start to translate that onto paper? I did exactly that. So I went back to my notes, but I also had a lot of the feelings and the emotion and all those vibes and that energy in my mind. So it was fresh because I had just delivered the talk, a month prior, before I started, or prior to my starting to actually write the book draft. And so I had all those notes. I already had the energy and I expanded upon it with a few other ideas that I had too. So what that was for me in my talk, I highlighted 5 bullet points. But I thought in the book, I needed more to it because I needed to give a little more context because there was it's a personal story, but I didn't dig too much into the personal story. It was more of some of the experiences, but how they related to what other people experience too in the workplace and just the things that you hear about human resources. And I'm sure everyone out there has an HR story or two from either side of the table. So it was very easy to do. And plus I had the capacity. So I need to be very clear also. One of the things that holds people back from writing is that they don't always have the time in the day or what have you to commit to it. And that is more than fair. I actually had the capacity. But what I did was I made sure that I had an hour at least per day for 30 days to commit to the writing process. That accountability was key. And our group, and Michelle and Jen Lafine was her cohort co-host, if you will. Amazing, amazing Jen Lafine. The two of them together held our group accountable. So that helped with it. Now, we bounced ideas off of each other, but no one else helped us write our books. It was each of us doing it our own.
Okay.
So yeah, it was really just taking those notes. And plus also, I love to write. So this was not a challenge for me. A lot of people say they want to write a book, and there's a lot of ways you can do it if you're not a writer even, especially nowadays with technology. But for me, I love to write. So I'm very verbose, but I wrote too much and then I had to condense it. But it was a great, great exercise.
That's great. That's great. So when you talked about, I love that you use the framework of your talk as the framework for the book. And then you said, okay, well, I want this to be more than 10 pages. So I'm going to put in other things as well. And I like that you brought in stories. And I read your book. I loved your book. I was one of your beta readers, actually. And I loved it from the get-go. But you brought in stories. So those stories, were they things that you had originally thought of when you were first preparing for your HR talk, the Disrupt HR talk, or did you think about them afterwards and then you thought, oh, these would be good for my book? How did the stories come in?
Well, some of the scenarios I talked about in the book, I'd actually I delivered in my talk, but I did also come back to some, especially with the added content. And I knew what I wanted to talk about. So, for example, what wasn't in my original talk was a section on being knowledgeable. So again, there's 7 points in my book, but my talk only had 5. So I took a couple of others, and one of them was being knowledgeable. And a lot of that was And also invincibility. So within those two, invincible and knowledgeable, I incorporated personal branding into that. I didn't really get into that in the talk, but I thought that's a really key component for HR professionals to keep in mind when it comes to building, their brands and how they present themselves in the workplace and in their communities and how they want to be perceived. So that was very important that I incorporated that as well. And that's a topic that is really passionate to me. It's a passion of mine to talk on those things because I'm a big Clifton Strengths aficionado, if you will, and UMAP certified for several years. But, I just basically the things that I had a lot of it in place, but I was able to expand upon that.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So then another question that I have is you had beta readers. And first of all, well, actually, before we get to the beta readers, I want to just talk about audience because who you are writing a book for is so important when we write a book. And we can't write for everybody because if we write for everybody, we're writing for nobody. Seth Godin said that, and I love it because it's such a true quote. So you have to really zero in on your audience. But I would have to say that in your situation, you had already done that because you gave a talk to an audience. So essentially, you kind of got that audience, who's my book for, out of the way, and that it was basically anybody who was at your talk. The nice thing is, though, that what your book is about applies to everybody in the workplace. So it's like it is for HR professionals, but it's actually for anybody who manages people in the workplace in the corporate, the corporate environment. So did you think any more about the whole audience thing when you were writing the book?
I did. And I will tell you, and thank you, by the way, for the beta readers part, because that's really important. So just a quick tip there, folks, when you do start to write, make sure that you have your small little team in mind of people that you're going to want to share the experience with. And that's a whole other topic, but people who are going to give you that critical feedback, but also who are going to cheer you on in the process. So just something to think about. And yes, Gillian, you and the publishing, all of it, huge gratitude for you. So some of my other beta readers included a retired sales professional and a longtime colleague. And he had read my book and he knew me very well anyway, but he and I have also over the years given very not hard, but just very direct feedback on certain things or call each other out, but on a very, very, friendly, positive tone. And even he read the book, and with the exception of course, for example, my title being, having Satan in the title, knowing that it's not going to apply to everyone. So there you go, right there, going back to the audience. He is a sales professional, retired sales professional, loved it, but also shared with me, gee, I don't really know, how this is going to go over well. I'm okay with it. But hey, some people, I ran this by some people in my church and, they might, have some opposition to that. I thought, well, the people in your church might not necessarily be the right audience for this book, So it's not going to appeal to everyone. What really resonated with me though, was when people shared that they loved it. They were energized by my title and the cover. And so it wasn't as outlandish as I thought it might be. So far, so good.
I love that. I love that. And I want to talk about beta readers more in a minute because there's a couple questions. So I don't want to forget that. But I thought it would be fun to, speaking of people, go and see who has joined us today on the live because I always love to bring in people. So let me hop over to the comments. Okay. And yay, we have Jeff Young in the audience who I have to just read his comment. Love that G and G are back again together. Namaste. Yay, Jeff. Thank you for being here. And by the way, Jeff, thank you very much for the wonderful Amazon review you just gave me. So I just read it like 2 seconds before he came on today and it was brilliant. And he put in a photo. So yay. Thank you, Jeff, for being here. Oh, Volta's here. Yay. So excited for this episode. Happy here to cheer on G. Of course, because she is.
And she was on your show recently with her new book.
With her new book. It's like a club. It's like, I feel
Love
like
Volta. And she's one of my biggest cheerleaders too. She's amazing.
I know she did something very special after your book launch. So if we have time, let's talk about that too, because that I
Yes.
think that was so brilliant, and it pays to have an artist friend. So yay, Roy is here. Oh my goodness, good day
How
from
did he
Sydney.
make it
It's
into
4.
Sydney?
He's got to
Thank
be
you, Ray.
he's got to be still sleeping, with pajamas on and the teddy bear and the coffee cup. So anyways, Roy, we so appreciate you being here. You said you would come, and
Ray.
gosh darn it, you kept your word. So thank you so much for being here. You can go back to sleep now. Thank you very much for being here. Yay. We have David here with us today. G fans. So people just love G and G. They love the
That's
G
cool.
Force. Thank you for being here today,
Thanks.
David. Leslie is here. Hello from New York. So
Yay.
yay, we have Leslie Neidick in the house today. Yay. Thank you
Another
very
one of
much.
my great friends.
Another
And
one of your,
Yolanda.
and Yolanda, another one of the G fans. So she says, hello, everyone. I just always love people's popping up on the screen with their smiling face. It's wonderful. Oh, and look, the ultimate smiling face. She's bringing sunshine from Florida
Yes.
with us today. Michelle B. Griffin, who we just name dropped, talking about your beautiful, inspiring G on, and then your book cohort and everything. It was amazing. So she says, hello, G, and G from Pensacola, Florida. So yay, we're happy you're happy. We're happy you're here with us. Eileen is here. Hey, G. So you got all sorts of fans popping up, G. It's awesome.
Love Eileen.
Thank you for
Friend from
being
Michigan.
here.
Yes.
And she's so proud of you. Isn't that lovely when people say, I'm so proud of you? I'm so proud of you.
Yes.
That's just brilliant. Rebecca says, hello, G, my friend. Great to see you.
In Sweden. Hello.
Is she in Sweden? Is she in Sweden?
Yes. Rebecca's in
Wow.
Sweden.
Wow. That is awesome. Awesome. Hello, G times 2. So
Yes,
that's good.
great.
That's
I'm
good.
so blessed. Everyone has just been amazing, and seeing everyone pop in here.
Yes, yes, yes. G and Gillian, so happy to see you both. So let me just while we have Volta on the screen, talk about what Volta did after your book launch, because it was just so sweet. What was so sweet.
Oh my goodness. Yes, because it also involves you. But
Yes.
it's interesting, and this might actually resonate with some people. So, when you write a book and you publish it, and you think, you have that momentary high, especially because in my case, I didn't have a marketing strategy. I didn't really have like all the next steps in mind. I just really wanted to get this done and out there and have this accomplishment. But then, kind of hit that wall a little bit afterwards. And for various reasons, I was having a low moment. One day I ended up meeting up with Volta, who's local to me here in Dallas. And I kid you not, she shows up with a gift. And it is a, I don't know, 24 by 36, one of those giant size pictures, framed copy of my cover. And I wish basically of this, like a framed, like just framed. And I kid you not, just the best surprise. And she shared with me that she gave that to me because someone, when she wrote her first book, had done that for her, and she wanted to do that for me. And so now I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. That's support from your network, people who show up for you and do these things. And as part of that, though, she shared with me that you, Gillian, had given her, because you and Devin had published my book, you had that image that she could use to give that gift to me. So this is an example. And for anyone who's listening out there and wanting to know the power of LinkedIn and really why be on here, you never know where your connections will lead, and people start to engage with each other, and they ultimately come together and they support you in the best of ways. So I wanted to share that really quick since you brought that up. So thank you, Volta, again, and Gillian too. It was an amazing, it's framed and it's on my wall. I'd fuss with the camera, but I won't.
Yay. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's a great story. It's a great story. So Yolanda says, love the story, G. So I'm sure she's talking to the amazing story that we heard at the beginning, not just this one, although I'm sure she loves this one too, that we just mentioned. But thank you. Yes, you have such a great story. It's a great story. I love that. And you know what? Every book really has a story. It's like, I don't think you could talk to any particular author and say, so tell us the story behind your book. And they'd be like, oh, there wasn't one. It's like, because something inspires all of us to pick up the pen or the keyboard and bang out a book. So whether it's who knows? But there's always a story behind every book. And I love this. I'm a fan of the story behind the story. So it's just perfect. So Michelle says, this is the most inspiring story. Go check out her presentation. So good. So actually, if anybody wanted to see their presentation, if they go to your website, is there a link on the website, or where is the presentation that anybody can go see?
Well, actually, on my website, I do have a book page. So if you go to goldensynergytouch.com/book, that's my book page. And that page takes you to some really cool things. Then I'm going to give Gillian here shout out, because Gillian encouraged me to set up that book page. And it has it has the story behind the story. So why I wrote the book, which is a genius idea. So you've got that video. I also have a link to my Disrupt HR 5-minute Ignite talk. So that's on there too. And then there's also a link to the Amazon page. So you can go and check out the Kindle, which is, I believe, $3.99. And then the paperback is $9.99. There's some goodies in there too. So for example, if you're curious about Clifton Strengths and UMAP, there's a link in there for that for discount. So it's a really slick little book for people who just want to think a little bit differently and maybe put a little bit of, punch into the workday. And yeah. So thank you. Long answer, but yes. So that's
good. Good. And it's always fun to go see the video that inspired the book. And also too, you have a really cool little, of all the people who have the book with their faces on it. And so anybody who's bought the book, go see if your face is there. If your face is not there, go send G a picture, because maybe you'll be in the next round. So I think that's always a good thing. So Volta says, it's such an inspiring story how G's book came to be, from presentation to publish. So I am really hoping, I agree. I am really hoping that people are sitting there going, I've done like 10 presentations. I'm sitting on 10 books. Yes, you are. Yes, you are sitting on 10 books. So that's a good thing to think about. Anna Morgan is here. Hey. And she says, incredible story. Love it. Love it. I love it. I love it. I love all the support you're getting today. So Alberto says, you are so great, G. Looking forward to having you at Disrupt HR Houston in 2025. So yay.
January 23rd. Yes. Thank you, Alberto, for joining. Thank you.
So I charge when you go to Houston for the Disrupt HR conference, I hope that other people are going to come up to you and say, okay, I'm doing my talk. How do I do a book, G? You're going to become a Disrupt HR book coach, because it's like you got it. You got it all down. You got it all down. So I think that would be a great thing. And look at that. Michelle says, stage to page in 4 months. And that's like, it doesn't have to take 5-10 years to write a book. I took 20. So don't be like me. It's like, really, it's like, if you have an idea, run with it, because there's no point in taking forever. It's just like, go run with it. Still has to be good quality. And G did good quality. It's not like she just slapped something together. She worked really darn hard on that. And it shows. But, it's just, I love that it could be done short. So that's good. And Volta says, digestible content is so impactful. It's so true, because it's like would be nothing worse than having a book that's so thick and people say, well, when I break my leg, I'll read your book. Or when I go on vacation and there's no TV and no Wi-Fi, I'll read your book, and be like, it's like, I was kind of hoping you'd read it now. So, having those short books, people can read it on a plane ride, isn't that the best? That's the best compliment. Somebody takes a plane ride and takes your book. So that's good. And look at this. She says, I love snacks and snackable books. And she paints snackable stuff. So it's like, I know. She's just amazing. And by the way, go check out her book. She just did her pocket-sized book. And we talked about that earlier. She was on the show a couple weeks back, and it's like pocket size. That's another great term, a pocket-sized book. I love that too. Yeah. So Alberto says, you are great, G. We look forward to having you next year. Oh, that came in twice. I'm not sure why. And David says, great question, Gillian. I don't know what question it was, but it was a great question. So I'm happy about that. Beta readers. Okay, good, good, good. Thank you for bringing that up because I want to talk about the beta readers. So beta readers, not everybody's familiar with that concept. So beta readers, just the short version is before your book actually goes to the publisher. So this is when you're still in the writing, editing stage, right? And you want other people to give you feedback before you kind of do the final. So G, you went to a couple of people, and it can be a few and it can be a bunch, whatever. So how did you handle that process of like, how long did you give people? What did you instruct them to do? And what did you do with their content afterwards?
Oh my goodness. I think gosh, and please correct me, maybe about week and a half to 2 week time frame, something like
That's
I didn't
good.
give too long. And here's the thing with my book too. So my book, according to, I think, and Gillian, please correct me again, terminology, is it Quillbot, where you do some of the writing and then it basically gives you the length of time. So I think it timed out to about, say, an hour reading. So I knew that the book wouldn't really take people very long to read.
Yeah.
And the feedback that I had right away from the beta readers, whom I selected, again, they were different. I had, again, my sales friend colleague, who's retired, my husband, who's a retired general manager, he wanted to read it, which really surprised me. But he'd been working with HR. He obviously knows me, and he's known my various ups and downs over many years. Then I had, Anna Morgan, by the way, is in comments. She graciously did this. The person, my friend Tiffany, who was on the original show, she was one of the readers. So had a mix of people read it. They gave some feedback and some suggestions that, overall I appreciated. I mean, no one came back and said, gee, this is terrible. I don't understand this. The chapters are wonky. They're not, like, the terminology is not flowing, or it's inconsistent here and there. It actually flowed. It was pretty fluid. So I was happy with that. And the other thing too, that you touched on really quick, was the editing process. So this is the other thing, because once you actually write your book, and this is where people get stuck, it's the editing, because a lot of times people want to write the book, but then they think, oh my gosh, how does the editing work? And Gillian, and by the way, this is for everyone in the audience, please follow Gillian's content if you're not already. I know some of you are tuning in today for me, but honest to God, her shows are highlighting some of these, pain points that newer authors are going through, and the concerns and the overwhelm. And recently you even did a show about the editing piece and how does that even look like, and where to find editors, and does everybody need an editor? And I actually had my own snafu, and then I had to go back and edit myself. Just, those things take a minute. But if you keep in mind that if you just stick to your plan, it's manageable. And so, did my edits. And then once I had my feedback from the readers, and then after that, I got my cover, and then I went to publishing. Thank you, Gillian and Devin Whitney. I'm giving the shout here because they do the Kindle publishing. Devin does. And it was pretty instant from there. So
That's good. That's good. And I think the beta readers, I think the good tip is not to take it personal. I think everybody, you are choosing who you want to be on your team. So, you're not going to go pick your enemies. You're going to pick people that you would trust their judgment. And, I remember I came to you and I said, these are the things that I think are awesome. And these are the things that maybe you could use just a little bit of work with, and you were like, yeah, that's good. And then you kind of, touched and did stuff with that. But it's, in the end, it's your decision as the author, because you could say, well, I really wanted to not kind of go outside the line, so that's why I didn't cover that, and whatever. So I think beta readers, it's like it's like when you go to a buffet, you put on your plate what you want at the end of the day. And probably the only thing is, if everybody tells you the same thing, you might really want to change that. Like if every one of your beta readers says, well, something was really weird in chapter 8, then you might say, better look at chapter 8. But other than that, it's, I think, up to you. And did you get comments like through word, or did you call people? Like, how did you get your feedback? How did you actually get your feedback?
Well, I think you sent me some via word, memory
Right.
serves. And then I had a couple of people just send me emails. And then I had a conversation with another person, just because it was so minimal. Because overall, thankfully, I didn't have to do a lot of overhauling. So yeah, overall, there wasn't much overhaul. I
Yay.
love that.
Yay.
Sorry, just had to
Yay.
say
I
that.
love that. I
Um,
love that.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things where I was confident enough, in myself and the content to know I was heading in the right direction. And the beta readers are there to just keep you on track. And it's intended to be a positive experience. And, afterwards my beta readers celebrated with me. And, I'm grateful to them to this day. I know Anna Morgan's in comments, and I just saw her comment come through about reading while she was in Europe. And and someone else read while they were sitting, at their, lake house beach. And just one of those, again, digestible reads that, people say, and I'll quote Michelle B. Griffin for a moment. She and I keep joking about the whole part about it not having to be this arduous process, this long drawn out process of, writing War and Peace. These books, I think at the end of the day, when you start with an idea or a presentation, it needs to be something that you have some level of passion about, because it makes it so much easier to write about it. If you're writing something that doesn't resonate with you and that you're not proud to promote it, just like getting the book cover. And I remember, Gillian, you said to me about the book cover at one point, if it's not something that I could proudly hold up,
Yep.
as I am now, the cover's not, it just won't work. So there's so many little things to it, but working my way through the process, now being on the other side, I will tell you, it didn't really take a ton of time. I just applied myself, and I encourage people to just get started today.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant advice. That's brilliant advice. I love that. I love that. So we have reached the end of our 30 minutes. I don't know why that just jumped. And is there any kind of final words of wisdom that you'd like to leave everybody with, G?
Yeah, you know what? Going back to, you never know who you're going to inspire and when. I received a comment yesterday, someone on LinkedIn, Anthony, smiling bow tie, by the way. If you don't know him, please go follow him. He's amazing. He wrote a post. He and I have been following each other for years, Clubhouse and such. And he wrote a post declaring that he was going to finally start writing his business book, because he'd been following my content for months. He'd been making the comments. I think he even purchased my book, and, kept saying, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Yesterday, I kid you not, he wrote a post about it, and he gave me a shout and said, gee, I'm doing this. You inspired me. I'm doing this. I'm not waiting until 2025. And I thought, that is incredible. So Anthony, I hope you're listening and catch this at some point, but I kid you not, you never know who you're going to inspire. And you might be disappointed by some people, maybe, who you think would follow, through for you and support you, maybe not being there as much as you'd like. But I kid you not, you will be so grateful for the overwhelm of all of the other people who show up and celebrate and support. And even just today, my heart is so full, just from all the people in comments. And I can't thank everybody enough. So thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you for being here today, G. Thank you, everybody who joined in on the live, everybody who will be listening later on the podcast. Thank you. We appreciate everybody.
Yeah.
And we hope you picked up some good tips today. And so if anybody ever watches this live and gets inspired, please give us a shout and say, I started writing my book because I got inspired from you too. So by the G-force, So that would be
Love
great.
it.
Okay, everybody. We'll see you again next time. Bye.